Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on this side of the House, we have no quarrel on the presentation of this complex piece of legislation. The explanatory memorandum of this bill clearly defines the object, which is to repeal the Radiation Protection Act of 2003 as stated by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, and replace it by a modern and comprehensive legislative framework with a view to enable Mauritius to meet its obligations under the international legal instruments ratified by the State of Mauritius in the field of radiation safety, nuclear security, and safeguards. A bill which was long overdue and which is coming to the House after lengthy discussions with the international authorities concerned. Madam Speaker, the Radiation Safety and Nuclear Security Bill accordingly provides for the establishment of a Radiation Safety and Nuclear Security Authority, which shall inter alia regulate and control all radiation sources and practices for the adequate protection of people and the environment against the harmful effects of ionizing radiation and for the safety of practices and the security of radioactive sources. The Radiation Protection Act, which was proclaimed on the 11th September 2006, already makes provisions for the protection of people and the environment from the harmful effects of ionizing radiation, and also establishes the Radiation Protection Authority as an independent regulatory body to regulate all practices involving sources of ionizing radiation. And that authority has been working in the right direction and very giving results since its creation. 5 regulations have been promulgated under the Act, namely for the payment of application fees in 2011, the Personal Radiation Monitoring Service in 2012. The Services Unit had to provide a radiation protection service known as Personal Radiation Monitoring Service for the purpose of measuring the exposure of radiation workers to ionizing radiation by means of a PRD badge provided to it. The Radiation Protection Conventions regulations of 2013 make provision notwithstanding of other enactment for the following 3 conventions. First, the Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management and on the Safety of Radioactive Waste Management. Second, the Vienna Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage. And third and 3, the Convention on Supplementary Compensation for Nuclear Damage to our force of law in Mauritius. 2 other regulations pertaining to the safe transport of radioactive materials and licensing and registration were promulgated in 2016 and 2017 respectively. But in spite of the fact that the Radiation Protection Act has been regularly revised to enable the state to meet its international obligations, no such revision has been undertaken with regard to the coming into force of the additional protocol since 17 December 2017. The additional protocol, Madam Speaker, is a legal document negotiated between the International Atomic Agency, IAEA, and an individual state, granting the IAEA further inspection authority that provided in that state's comprehensive safeguard agreement with the IAEA. The additional protocol aims to enable the IAEA Inspectorate to provide assurance about both declared and possible undeclared activities and to get a more complete picture of a state's overall nuclear program. Under the protocol, the IAEA is granted expanded rights of access to information and sites. The text of the protocol, Madam Speaker, additional to the agreement between Mauritius and the International Atomic Energy Agency for the applications of safeguards in connection with the treaty and under the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, was approved by the Board of Governors on 14 September 2004. It was signed on the 9 December 2004 in Vienna, pursuant to Article 17 of the protocol, additional protocol, and the protocol entered into force on 17 December 2007, the date on which the agency received from Mauritius written notification that Mauritius statutory and constitutional requirements for the entry to force had been met. This new bill, Madam Speaker, will therefore enable our country to meet its obligations, particularly with regard to nuclear security, which was not specifically addressed under the present legislation. And this is why I said the presentation of this bill was long overdue. It is quite obvious that careful consideration must have been given for clarity while drafting this piece of legislation, and some definitions have been improved. And from what we have heard, assistance was sought from the IAEA for the drafting, and that we shall benefit from its technical assistance for the implementation at the appropriate stage. Let me highlight, Madam Speaker, a few of these drafting improvements from what I've read. In the existing legislation, minister means a minister to whom responsibility of the subject of energy is assigned. And in the bill, minister means a minister to whom responsibility for the peaceful application of ionizing radiation is assigned. Ministry means a ministry responsible for the peaceful application of ionizing. And under the present legislation, powers of a minister is defined. And under the proposed bill, the powers of minister have been amended, and the minister may now give directions in writing of a general character to the board, not inconsistent with this act, which he considers necessary in the public interest, and the board shall comply with those directions. Madam Speaker, one cannot but agree that we need to create the conditions for the promotion of radiation safety and nuclear security culture, especially in the health sector. A regional training course was held in April 2018 in Mauritius with the IAEA support. The course was hosted by the Ministry of Health and Quality of Life, and some 25 radiotherapy professionals from 13 hospitals in 10 African countries developed plans to improve safety in their facilities. According to the IAEA, I quote from the press report on this workshop, though radiotherapy generally is a safe medical procedure that benefits cancer patients around the world, significant errors with a negative impact on the patient and the radiotherapy facility can occur. The number and severity of safety incidents indicate a radiation oncology facility safety and quality performance. Robust safety systems tailored to each facility aim to reduce such risk. Radiotherapy experts from Australia and the United States taught the course, which included the use of adapted analytical methods often used in engineering. Such methods help to determine the root causes and avoid repetition of mistakes. Participants also, Madam Speaker, practice using the IAEA safety tools, such as the Safety in Radiation Oncology, Reporting and Learning System, and the Quality Assurance Team for Radiation Oncology Methodology. Madam Speaker, we need to promote education, training and research and development in radiation safety and nuclear security. This is why I fail to understand why the Mauritius Research Council and the University of Mauritius and even the Commission of Police are not be considered as potential members of the board. We are a small country and we suffer from a lack of specific skills, and we cannot afford to disperse our limited resources, and effective linkages need to be put in place to harness our real potential. Mauritius, Madam Speaker, deposited an instrument of accession to the Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management and on the Safety of Radioactive Waste Management, Joint Convention, on the 14th April 2013. There was no declaration or reservation attached to the instrument of accession. The Convention entered into force in Mauritius on 14th July 2013. According to the second national report of Mauritius under this Convention, presented for the 6th review meeting in June 2018, I quote, "Mauritius is not a major generator of radioactive waste. Radioactive materials in Mauritius mainly originate from various activities in the medical, industrial and research fields, which give rise to the generation of small quantities of radioactive waste. Most of the waste is in the form of solid disuse, sealed radioactive sources, and some diagnostic and therapeutic medical applications give rise to liquid. The legislation in Mauritius on radiation protection was passed in November 2003. This legislation is currently under revision for a more comprehensive legal infrastructure on radiation safety and encompass nuclear security as well. That's why, Madam Speaker, what we are doing now, according to the same report, a radiation protection waste management on radioactive waste and disused sealed sources. And even regulations was under preparation. A set of draft regulations on radioactive waste management has been developed to complement the provisions made in the Radiation Protection Act 2003. The regulations were intended to provide for the following: safe management of radioactive waste and disused sealed sources, discharge and clearance of radioactive material, location, design, construction, commissioning, operation and decommissioning of radioactive waste management facilities, physical protection and security of radioactive waste management facilities, and I don't know whether this Section 32 of this bill now makes the necessary provisions. There is need also, Madam Speaker, a need for a point of contact for providing any information or assistance regarding nuclear or radiological emergencies under the terms of relevant international instruments, including the Convention of Early Notification of a Nuclear Accident and the Convention on Assistance in the case of a nuclear accident and radiological emergency. Finally, the authority shall discharge such other functions as be necessary to protect people and the environment from the harmful effects of ionizing radiation. Madam Speaker, we have up to now been talking solely on the harmful effects of ionizing radiation. Non-ionizing or non-ionizing radiation refers to any type of electromagnetic radiation that does not carry enough energy per quantum to ionize atoms or molecules, that is, to completely remove an electron from an atom or molecule. Instead of producing charged ions when passing through matter, non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation has sufficient energy only for excitation, the movement of an electron to a higher energy state. Ionizing radiation, Madam Speaker, which has a higher frequency and a shorter wavelength than non-ionizing radiation, has many uses but can be a health hazard. Exposure to it can cause burns, radiation sickness, cancer, and genetic damage. Type of non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation: near ultraviolet radiation, visible light, infrared, microwave, radio waves, very low frequency, extremely low frequency, and thermal radiation. Non-ionizing radiation can produce mutagenic effects, such as inciting thermal energy in biological tissue that can lead to burns. In 2011, the International Agency for Research on Cancer from the World Health Organization released a statement adding radiofrequency electromagnetic fields, including microwave and millimeter waves, to their list of things which are possibility leading to cancer to humans. In May 2011, the World Health Organization and the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified radiofrequency electromagnetic fields as possibly carcinogenic to humans, Group 2B, based on an increased risk for glioma and other type of brain cancer associated with wireless phone. Over the last few years, Madam Speaker, there have been mounting concern about the possibility of adverse health effects resulting from exposure to radiofrequency electromagnetic fields, such as those emitted by wireless communication devices. The number of mobile phone subscriptions is estimated at 5 billion globally. The IARC monograph working group discussed the possibility that these exposures might induce long-term health effects, in particular to increased risk for cancer. This has relevance for public health, particularly to users of mobile phones, as well as the number of users is large and growing, particularly among the young adults and children. The working group discussed and evaluated the available literature on the following exposure categories involving radiofrequency, electromagnetic fields, occupational exposures to radar and to microwaves, environmental exposures associated with transmission of signals for radio, television, and wireless telecommunication. And lastly, personal exposures associated with the use of wireless telephones. International experts, Madam Speaker, shared the complex task of tackling the exposure data, the studies of cancer in humans, the studies of cancer in experimental animals, and the mechanistic and other relevant data. The results obtained, Madam Speaker, according to the results obtained, the evidence was reviewed critically and overall evaluated as being limited to among users of wireless telephones, for glioma and acoustic neuroma, and inadequate to draw conclusions for other types of cancers. The evidence from the occupational and environmental exposures mentioned above was similarly judged inadequate. The working group did not quantify the risk. However, one study of past cell phone up to the year 2004 showed a 40% increased risk for gliomas in the highest category of heavy users, reported average 30 minutes per day over a 10-year period. And Dr. Jonathan Samet of the University of South California, overall chairman of the working group, indicated that the evidence, while still accumulating, is strong enough to support a conclusion and the too big classification. The conclusion means that there could be some risk, and therefore we need to keep a close watch for a link between cell phones and cancer risk, given the potential consequences for public health and the classification and findings, said the IARC Director, Christopher Wild. It is important that additional research be conducted into the long-term heavy use of mobile phones, pending viability of such information. It is important, Madam Speaker, to take pragmatic measures to reduce exposure, such as hand-free devices or texting. Madam Speaker, as Mauritius is a non-nuclear state, radiation safety primarily concerns the health sector, where several disused sealed radioactive sources have been identified. We need to regulate and control all radiation sources and practices for adequate protection of people and the environment against the harmful effect of ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation, and for the safety of practitioners and the security of radioactive sources. For example, the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency is an Australian government agency charged with the responsibility for protecting the health and safety of people and the environment from the harmful effects of ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Honourable Deputy Prime Minister has informed us of the implementation of the infrastructures and the setting up of this new institution, and we hope, we pray that the right person be put there in the right place, because this is a very important subject, and we are sure that Mauritius have the competence that we have to ensure that the protection of our population is taken into consideration. I thank you.